Der Taam was Tshuva hat bekeach zu mevare sein eigne Tzutzes von Zdenes. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here in the Sikha, the Rebbe is talking about the power of Tshuva and how that works. So the Rebbe says, the reason that Tshuva hat bekeach zu mevare sein eigne Tzutzes von Zdenes. The Gemara says that if you do Tshuva out of Ahava, then even the intentional sins, the Zdenes, become mitzvahs, become merits. How does that happen? Since the sin is against the Eibishter's deepest rotzen, even in Atzmus itself, the sin is unacceptable and not tolerated. How can tshuva turn it into a mitzvah? So first of all, we're talking about the divine spark, the nitzutz eliki that is in the Aveda, in this Denes, not the Aveda itself. The Aveda itself cannot be redeemed, but the nitzutz in it can. Why is that and how is that? Because tshuva reaches into atzmus, where the mitzvahs and the sins are rooted, and that is the Baal HaRotzen. It's the Eibishter himself who wants or doesn't want the mitzvah or the sin. Was chas v'sholem nicht muchrach wird nicht nitves in dem Rotzen. And he himself, the Baal HaRotzen, can forgive for the sin because he is not a victim of his Rotzen. And the Rotzen does not control him because it's his Rotzen. He is the Baal, he's the master of the Rotzen. Now this might seem like the Rebbe is saying that the Baal HaRotzen, the Eibishter himself, doesn't really care. There's the Rotzen where it matters, and then there's the Baal HaRotzen where it doesn't matter. So the Baal HaRotzen, since it doesn't matter to him, forgives you for your sin. But that can't be what he's saying, because if it doesn't matter, then there's no need for forgiveness. And the whole question of how does tshuva work, the whole question exists because we know that the sin is completely and totally unacceptable even in the highest levels. And that's why there's the question, so how can it be forgiven? So what the Rebbe is saying, let's take a look at footnote 24. That's a Maramokim. Footnote 26. The Rebbe writes like this: Sheirish inyan hatshuva hu mipnei she'atzmas eirin seif einei mucher chas v'sholem b'ritzenei Shehagam, Sheharotzen the mitzvahs who gam came bepnimiyas v'atzmus eirin seif. Although the rotzen for the mitzvah, which means also the rejection of the avera, exists in atzmus and the pnimiyas of the atzmus, but yet einei mugbol umuchra chas v'sholem beharotzen. But that does not put a limit on the Eibishter that the rotzen controls him rather than he controlling the Ratzon. We'll explain that in a minute. We go back to the text. Mitzad atzmusa yizbarech idoch eine yedeya be'eze mehem chafetz. Since with the Eibishter himself, we are told that we don't know, does he like the darkness or the light? Does he like the good or the bad? We don't know. That's from a medrash. But he is beicher bebechira chofshis. He chooses with free will to desire the tzaddikim and not desire or to hate the wickedness. So since he chooses it with bechira chofshis, idor b'meile nishayich ad desdenes sollen haben matfis as mokim legabi im und sollen haben Bekeach zu Meilim sein auf die Nitzutzes Hagdusha was in sie. The tshuva means that the Eibishter accepts the nitzutz that is otherwise trapped in the zdeines, and that gives him pleasure as if you had done a mitzvah. But it's the nitzutz aliki, not the aveda, that becomes a schus, the schuyes. So we might understand it a little bit like this. In the revealed world, in the world of law and order, good and bad are opposites. So that you can't have a mixture. Either it's good and then it's good, or it's bad and then it's not good. Now that rule, that good is good and bad is bad, that can't be applied to the Eibishter himself. The Eibishter himself, who is above and beyond all limits and all the definitions and so on, you can't say that to him the two are incompatible and that one blocks the other or competes with the other or interferes with the other, as if to say that the Eibishter can't get to the nitzutz in the sin because the sin blocks it. Since the sin is his choice, it can't be stronger than him. So it cannot block the Eibishter's access to the nitzutz. The human being can't find or can't get to the nitzutz in a sin, and that's why he can't do the sin l'shem shamayim, because he doesn't have access to it. So even if he does an Aveda with the highest of intentions and with the best of intentions, he cannot get to the nitzutz that is in the sin, in the Gimel Klippas Hatmeyes. That's why it's called Usr. It's tied, it's chained, it's locked away. You can't get to it, or you can't release it. That's why we're not allowed to do an Aveda. But you can't say the same thing for the Eibishter. Of course, he essentially and deeply hates the Aveda, in the deepest part of him. But that doesn't give the Aveda power over him, so that he can't get to the Nitzutz Aliki because it's in the Klippa. So this conflict, where Klippa conceals or locks up Kedusha, this cannot be applied to the Eibishter, to the Baal HaRotzen. In the Rotzen itself, then it's either good or bad. But when you get to the Baal HaRotzen, meaning the fact that the Rotzen that says that the sin is bad and the mitzvah is good, since that is his bechira, he therefore can't be handicapped by it. So the sin remains a sin. It doesn't become a mitzvah. Why? Because there's no desire anywhere, there's no acceptance anywhere for that sin, not even in the highest part of Atzmas himself. So what does tshuva mean? Tshuva means as much as the Eibishter rejects and despises the evil, it does not prevent him from getting to the nitzutz that's in it. And that's what it means, that the Eibishter is not nitvus or mugbal by his rotzen. In other words, his rotzen hasn't become stronger than him to be able to interfere. Not that it's a little bit acceptable, or that a little bit he doesn't care. He cares completely. But his caring doesn't weaken him. That's called a true need. A true need is a description of who you are, not of what your handicaps are. So a true need does not handicap you. So when it comes to the nitzutz that is in the Aveda, the Eibishter has access to it, because he is the Baal HaRotzen, and his Rotzen cannot cripple him. So he loves the nitzutz, he accepts the nitzutz, he extracts it from the Aveda, and that's like doing a mitzvah. So there's absolutely no contradiction here, and there's no reason to assume that forgiveness comes because on some level he doesn't care. Then it wouldn't be impressive, by the way. If forgiveness comes because he doesn't care, that's not even called forgiveness, that's called indifference. So the power of tshuva, as the Rebbe says on the next footnote, really amazing. The Rebbe says, Adarabbe, mekiven she'atzmusa yizbarich einei nitvus beharotzen, because the Eibishter is not limited by his own rotzen, ushlilas harahu mitzad bechiros sei, and the reason he rejects the evil is because he chooses to, harei mitzad bechirozu, that itself, the fact that he chooses to reject it, nasa hara mushlolu mufrach betachlis. The sin becomes more unacceptable, more rejected than it would if he wasn't choosing it. So his choosing to reject it makes it more off the grid, out of the question, absolutely out of the rotzen, more so than the fact that bad is not as good as good. In other words, something about the bad itself. But since there's nothing about the bad itself, it's the Eibishter's bechira to reject it. It is more rejected and more out of the question than it would be if he didn't choose to reject it. So the fact that he chooses to reject it, again, doesn't mean that he likes it a little bit. It means he despises it utterly, not because it's bad, but more than because it's bad, because of his bechira. But on the other hand, mekiven she'einei nitvas, ein ze mailim legabei kebifnim. But on the other hand, because it is his choice, if it's really his choice, then it can't cripple him or prevent him from accepting the nitzutz that is in it. I think that's a pretty clear picture of that.
How do we define nitzutz?
Nothing can exist without a lukus. So pure evil can't exist.
So it's God. Nitzutz is like God?
The fact that he wanted the klippa to exist. So that rotzen, you can redeem, you can get it back out. But then what happens when that nitzutz is redeemed? What happens to the evil? It's destroyed. It doesn't become a mitzvah.
This is really translated as spark, but when you say the nitzutz,
the little bit of rotzen that there is for the klippa. That's the spark.
And what's the lashon? It seems the eini yedeh ba'ez ameim chafetz b'masem shel tzadikim b'masem shel Hashem. Just masem. Like, why is it that lashon is like the eini yedeh means I don't know which one he wants.
You can't know.
You can't know, but you can know because he. But then you can't know which one he wants. So it's obvious which one he wants.
No, you can't know by looking at the evil and the good. You can't say, oh, obviously he doesn't like that one because that one is dark. Mm. Dark doesn't matter. So you don't know. Maybe he likes dark. So by looking at the virtue of the mitzvah or the ugliness of the sin, you don't know. So the mitzvah or the aveda does not tell you which one he likes. Because as far as he's concerned, darkness is just as good. How then do we know that he doesn't like it? Because he chose it. And the Rebbe is using this to explain what does it mean, ad lo yoda. You should really come to a level where you don't know the difference between Mordechai and Haman. That's not a good thing. That's not even a kosher thing. The idea is that because you don't know, you get yourself above the comparison of good and evil, Mordechai and Haman. The distinction between them doesn't come from them. It comes from the Eibishter's Ratzon, Eibishter's Bechira.
So, could he not have chosen to like mitzvahs? And say the fact that the Eibush should choose it.
Here, I think this is a good way to put it. As far as the mitzvah is concerned, he could reject it, and as far as the sin is, he can accept it. So could he? Depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the mitzvah or the sin, yeah, he could go either way. As far as that's concerned. But there's something in him that doesn't allow that. But because it's him, he can't be handicapped by it. Which is really the definition of Ratzon, or of need. Your need doesn't weaken you. Because if it does, then something is imposing itself. It's not your need anymore. So you're not the Baal of that Ratzon. So I guess in this context, Baal HaRatzon doesn't mean the one who wants. It means the Balabos of the Ratzon. You can't stop being the Balabos because it's your Ratzon. So you can't, oh, my Ratzon doesn't let me. Hey, you're the Baal HaRatzon. But the Ratzon is absolute, and that's why the Aveda itself, you can't do anything with it. Shvirason sehu takanason.